All right, we are going to be talking about word problems with linear equations and functions. Now, let's just quickly kind of do a quick review here of what we've been talking about. When we talk about slope and linear equations, we're looking at slope-intercept form. When I look at this, I have an independent variable. Remember, we talked about those. Those are the things that are driving the equation. So we pick values for x, we plug them in, and we get back values for y, which is the dependent variable. It depends, the y value completely depends on what we plug in for x. Now, when we look at this, we are still looking at y equals mx plus b. So remember, we can also write that as f of x equals mx plus b. And in that case, the f of x is the same as the y value. It's the dependent. So when we look at this, we have a rate of change. Now, when we talk rate of change, what we're talking about there is we are talking about the slope. So when we look at a story problem, the rate of change will say something like something per whatever. So when you look at that, that's like, it might say something like they're going to charge you $5 per day. They're going to charge you $2 per movie. They're going to charge you, $6 per mile, whatever. So understand that rate of change, how quickly things are changing, that becomes our slope. The second thing that we have here is our starting point. And when we look at this, this will be our y-intercept or our b. And remember, the starting point will say stuff like you start with, or they have, something like that. And what that means is that's the value that you're starting with, that we're going to be using as our y-intercept. So here we go. Let's give this a shot. It says Manuel collects hats, and he has 6 hats already. So when I read that, that already tells me that 6 is equal to my B. And the reason that is because that's my starting. He has 6 hats already. And then if we read on, it says, and he tries to purchase 2 more hats each week. So this is my M. So my M is equal to 2. So if we think back, we have y equals mx plus b. So what equation would represent that? Well, I have a b of 6, so definitely not A, definitely not D. And then I have a slope of 2, so it's got to be either B or C. But when we look, we start with 6 and we're adding 2 more on each time. So that would be C. Then it says, what does the Y represent? The Y represents here the total number of hats. Okay, what does the X represent? And that is the number of weeks. What does the 2 represent? The 2 is how many per week. Okay, and then what does the 6? That's our starting. So now when we come in here, we get ready to graph, we're still going to graph our equation like we were. So I'm going to start in, I'm going to say, okay, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here's my 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, at some point, you may want to switch your scale on your axes. And if you do that, just make sure that you switch it on both. So we start at 6, we go up to right 1, up to right 1. It would look like that right there. Then it says, how many hats would he have at the end of week 3? So what we're looking for is this means that X is equal to 3. So we take that and plug it in. So Y is equal to 2 times 3 plus 6. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. So he would have 12 hats. If we look how many at the week 10, X equals 10 here. So now we're going to go y equals 2 times 10 plus 6. So that's going to give me a total of 26 hats. So that's how we do that type of a process. If we look here at the second one, at Joe's Clown Car Rental Agency, renting a car costs $25 plus 75 cents per mile. So the $25, that's going to be my B, that's my starting amount. My slope, because this is how much it's changing, is 75 cents. So when we look at that, y equals mx plus b, my equation I'm going to be dealing with is letter B here. So y equals 0.75x plus 25. What does the y? Well, that's going to be our total cost. The x is the number of miles. The 25 represents initial cost. And the 75 cents is cost per mile. Now, when we look at this, to change the slope to a fraction. So there's a couple ways I can do that. Number one, I can maybe know it by memory, but if I don't, remember to change a decimal to a fraction. We take the number and we put it over its place value name. The 5 is in the hundreds. So 75 over 100, which is 3/4. Or you can use a calculator, and if you do that, you're just going to go 0.75, and then you would hit basically second PRB on the calculators we use in class, press equals, and it will kick back 3/4 as well. So the equation I'm now going to graph is y equals 3/4 x plus 25. Now, when you do this, when you go to look at the scale of this, so we have to get clear to 25. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count by 5s going up. And then I'm also going to count by 5s going across. And I'll explain why here in just a second. Okay. So one plus to that is keeping that consistent, then our slope gets a little easier. And here's why. I come up to 25, I put my Y-intercept. From there, I need to move 3/4. So what I can do is move up 3 lines and then over 4 lines. And that would be the exact same slope since my scale is the same. Okay, now, next one. It says if they drive 100 miles, how much will the cost be? So here, my x would equal 100. So we take that, and y is equal to 75 cents times 100 plus 25. And that we just punch into a calculator, and it's going to cost $100 for that. Okay? All right, this last one here, we start off. It says Sammy has $150 in her savings account and saves $40 per month. So when you read that, $40 per month, that's going to be our rate of change. She starts with 150. That's her Y-intercept. So when you look across, this one's not, that one's not, so my answer would be B. What does the Y represent? That would be total savings. The X would represent the per month. And the 150 would be the starting amount. And the 40 would represent how much per month. So it wants me to graph this. So I start off now. If you notice, that scale is quite a bit different. So I'm going to count by, let's go by 20. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180. Okay, so I start there. Now, if I look at that, that's still going to put me way up here. So I'm actually going to change that. If you notice, my lines were way up there still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and go by 40. Now, what that does then is if you notice, my slope is 40, so it just makes it a little easier that way. And I'm actually going to keep my x going by ones just to make it easier to move using my slope. So I start in and I'm going to say, okay, up 150, so that's going to be about right there. And then from that, I'm going to move up 40, right 1. Up 40, right 1. Up 40, right 1. And there would be my graph. Then it says, how much will Sammy have saved in her account in 1 year? Now remember, 1 year is 12 months. 2 years is 24 months. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take that and we're going to go y equals 40 times 12 plus the 150. And then we're also going to do basically the same thing again and go y equals 40 times 24 plus 150. And at that point, you literally just take your calculator, 40 times 12, and then add to it 150. And that should get us $630. And then at 2 years, you're just going to go and multiply that by 2, which would be $1,260. And that's how we do word problems using linear equations.